time for the final word in sports across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
I would go Alabama 1. I would go Clemson 2. Then I would put Miami 3 and Oklahoma 4.
Yeah, I have Alabama, Miami, Oklahoma, Clemson, and then I would have Auburn.
Well, you really have become a Clemson hater here in a short amount of time.
I think what gave Clemson the edge this week over Miami, a Miami team that has really impressed us the last 2 weeks, was the win against Auburn. They have 2 road victories that are very impressive to the committee. Miami's not played a winning team on the road yet, and that's something that has given Clemson a slight edge this week with their performance on the road. But Clemson's resume they put together with 6 wins over teams with winning records is the most of any team in our top 25 rankings this week.
I said the Kings in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah, I said the Kings in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah, I said the Kings in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah,
you know, it's damn hard being right all the time.
Yeah, how's Tom Herman?
It's easy to be right part of the time. Hard being right all the time.
When's that Tom Herman South Carolina press conference, Corn?
It's Alabama, Clemson, Miami, Oklahoma. I did not realize that the committee listens to me personally and the show in general.
Well, here's the interesting thing about what
you can blame Tom Herman on Tom Herman.
Gotcha.
Okay, he's the one who backed out.
Here's the interesting thing. So you said number 1 is Alabama, Clemson number 2. Why'd you have to think about it?
I was just wanting to see if I wanted to say anything more about Alabama, and thus it gave me a pause before I said Clemson.
I will say this: the committee chairman.
Don't question the manner in which
I will.
I make my selections.
I will. Now, the interesting thing is, these guys in these committees say things that the basketball committee says. They can always find a reason for why they do things. They've got wins against 6 winning teams. Well, he never said that Miami beat the team they just ranked 3rd last week.
You've
been left that out.
You ever been to where Kirby Hocut's school is, Lubbock, Texas, Corn?
Have not had the pleasure.
Okay.
I've been in Texas before.
Well, the thing about Lubbock, Texas, when you go there, is that basically the entire town generally stinks.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that comes out of that town generally stinks.
Wow.
Right? And nothing really came out of that town that stunk more
What's
than
that got to do with the top 4?
I'm just saying, he's the chairman of that committee, and nothing that came out of
no more votes than anybody else.
Nothing that came out of that.
South Carolinians on that committee. Did you know that?
Ding, 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 ding.
And both are Tigers.
And I know that they have I know that they have to recuse themselves when Clemson's being talked about inside that room. But I have to tell you, something stinks in that room. The love affair that committee has with Clemson, I'm sorry. I know you've tried to backbeat of this corner as a Clemson hater.
No. You backed yourself into it.
No, I'm not trying to say I'm a Clemson hater. I'm just trying to say that if you are looking at this from an objective standpoint, and you don't seem like you're looking at it from an objective standpoint because you want to see Clemson in the top 2, the only reason Clemson is not number 4 right now is because that would put them in a game with Alabama. And there's no way that this committee, which again does this for television purposes, doesn't want to see Alabama and Clemson play before the final game.
It's very simple. There's a couple of things here. You cannot argue a couple of things. Number 1, Clemson has beaten, as he said, 3 top 15 teams on the road. Number 2, you might complain about the arrangement of the 4, but Clemson is going to play Miami.
Of course.
And if they both win until they meet, that's an elimination game.
Absolutely.
So that resolves that problem.
Yes.
Sure. The question is, and I guess you don't have as much respect for the ACC and Miami as you do for the SEC. If Miami plays Clemson to the final second and loses by a point or a field goal, should that eliminate them from the top 4? Because everybody was saying if Georgia were to play Alabama undefeated and lose, then both should go to the playoffs.
I wasn't necessarily saying that.
Well, most people
I
would.
wasn't necessarily saying.
Again, you're in the minority. All right. Welcome in. It's Sports Talk on a Wednesday night, off and rolling. And what a great show we got for you tonight. The M&M boys will be here. We'll have we'll have give and go. We'll have no give, but a lot of go. Jordan Roper can't join us tonight. Aaron Lucas can, so we'll talk hoops. We'll hear from the Gamecocks' Hayden Hurst, and we'll hear from Clemson's Dorian O'Daniel. Recruiting coming up. This is an SC Wild night on Sports Talk 2, so you Hunter people and Fisher people, I'm just being politically correct this day and time. You don't dare say anything to hurt anybody's
just say
feelings. Anglers work. Yeah. All the generic form of the words related to the outdoors we're going to use here on Sports Talk. Anyway, we'll have Captain Billy Downer with us at 7:30. You have any questions for the captain? You want to go ahead and email them in advance or put them on our Twitter timeline. We will review them and get those to him. You can also call in during that section of the program. We do want to mention last night up in Arden, North Carolina, it was Spartanburg Day against Christ School. Zion Williamson against some of the good players off that Christ School team, including the Stone kid that South Carolina's in really good shape with, 6'11", 2019 kid. But, of course, everybody was there for Williamson for the most part. And so, media guys go there, and they don't go there for the game. They go there because here's an opportunity to talk to Zion after the game about recruiting, because today's the last day of the early signing period. What are your plans? Are you going to sign? Or are you going to wait? Things like that, simple stuff. And so they wait through the game and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure they enjoy the game. I can't speak for them. I can only speak for me as if I were there. And they take the kid. First of all, I'm told that, of course, the stepdad's in charge here, and he was only going to let one reporter go back to talk to the kid. Number one, that's a no-no.
No.
And then
who got the honor? Who got the honor?
I don't know. The second no-no was, okay, they let the media back to talk to him with the direction that there would be no recruiting questions asked. So, lucky for them, I wasn't there because, you don't have a press conference and then put down instructions on what can and cannot be asked. Now, if you start a press conference, and this happens all the time with the college coaches in particular, and there's a touchy subject out there like player suspension, they'll say up front, I can't talk about the suspension, so don't ask questions. Even then, you'll get a question or two about it, but they'll make it clear up front. So, he put down the directive that there would be no questions asked towards recruiting, which, that's their right to do that. But I think it's a bad look. You could very easily have just had Zion say, look, as far as my recruiting goes, I'm not signing tomorrow. I'm undecided, and we'll let you know when things move forward. And that would have made everybody happy and would have covered all the bases without, creating just a little bit of that air of superiority that these young people and people around them now seem to be wanting to develop with these kids. Really kind of ticked me off from afar. I wasn't there. I'm glad I wasn't there. It would have been a wasted trip.
Would you have given Lee Anderson the business on that one?
Well, I don't know how I would have reacted until I was there and would have been told no with the group. I don't know what you do.
All I have to say is this.
I was talking to a couple of guys who were there, and it's like, I understand the situation you're in, but you also have a job to do. You have people to, and nobody cared about the game. He scored 45 points, had 15 rebounds. Nobody cared really about that. They wanted to know, was Zion going to be signing today? What are his plans? And, here's the other thing. You're willing to write a recruiting blog for USA Today and share your innermost thoughts about it. And yet when the people who cover you on a regular basis want to talk to you, you're shut down. See, that's just, I know, I don't want to get into what's fair and what's not fair, but that's totally not fair.
He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants the attention, but doesn't want the responsibility that comes with that attention.
Well, I don't know if it's him. Somebody around him does not, and that's unfortunate.
Coach the kid with some answers and let him answer every question. Coach him.
Anyway, he didn't sign today.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, welcome back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com. And on Twitter, we are at SportsTalkSC. Of course, we're brought to you by South Carolina Electric Cooperative. We've got the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl coming up on December the 9th. I want to remind you, you can get tickets right now online at touchstoneenergybowl.com. They're only $15. Grab them up. Plus, contest is ongoing to give away tickets to the game. The winner gets a pair of tickets, a $100 Visa gift card, and free Touchstone Energy merchandise. Go to the website scliving.coop/touchdown. Get your entry in by December 1st. Yes.
I got three things, and I promise I'll shut up.
God.
Uh-oh.
I promise I'll shut up.
Are we rolling tape on this?
I promise.
Do you have this recorded?
Any more caffeine in this?
I promise I'll shut up.
Okay.
Three things
For how long? The question is how long?
about this particular subject, about the rankings. The things that bothered me about what happened last night is that the committee is ignoring the fact that Oklahoma has three victories in the top 13.
Lost at home. Next.
Clemson has a loss to a Syracuse team outside the top
on the
50.
Road. Next.
Who cares about on the road versus
Means
at home?
something.
It doesn't mean
It
a
means
damn thing.
something.
It's a loss to a team outside the top 50 who is under 500. You could croon about Clemson beating all these teams who are over 500. You lost to a team that's outside the staggering top 50 to Syracuse, and don't give me that Kelly Bryant was out of the football game because you had 7 offensive points with him in the football game.
They'd had more.
You would not have had more. The team was getting beat routinely by Eric Dungy.
What's your third point?
And the third point is you also beat Auburn, who didn't have their top running back. So if you're going to get angry about losing to Syracuse without your quarterback, you beat Auburn without their top running back and with their quarterback having played only one game with that school.
You're done?
Those are the 3 points.
Well,
you're done.
The only point I have is I wish the committee would say it and not dance around it. If you're going to give Alabama, which if you look at Alabama's strength of schedule, maybe they shouldn't be number one.
Bad.
Are you giving Alabama and Clemson juice because they also played in the first 2 title games? Tell me that. Now, you're going to say each year stands on its own. I don't believe it. Tell me you're giving them juice because they've been consistent.
All right, 800-956-7266. Couple of notes, and we'll get to your phone calls here tonight on Sports Talk. USC announced today that it will host Charlotte in a football game.
Barn burner.
Put this on your calendar. September 24th, 2022.
I'll go to Clemson that day.
Yeah.
I'm just putting tomorrow on.
Same day. Let's see, September 24th, 2022. Clemson's playing Elon that day, so you go ahead and head up there.
I'll have that.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I don't know who the Tigers are playing. Hey, look, Charlotte is a new program. They recruit the Carolinas, getting a lot of players from the area.
Given my reputation with Clemson people, they might stop me at the Pickens County line now before I get there.
Good luck. And of course, some people are snickering that Charlotte's has an assistant coach, Coach Henry, whose son is, of course, KJ Henry, thinking that, hey, sign up the team, get the kid. I don't know that anything like that would into play here.
Well, Coach Muschamp has already said he considers Charlotte part of South Carolina as far as recruiting.
Yeah, but listen, if that helps them with KJ Henry from their standpoint, then by all means they're going to do it. This is not good news. USC announced today the baseball series with North Carolina in Charlotte will continue in 2018 and 2019. The problem is the game's been played the last 2 years, but the Gamecocks didn't show up. It was just North Carolina on the field. Well, there was a team called South Carolina on the field. North Carolina won the first game 15-0, and then won last year 20-5. So it'd be nice if South Carolina went to Charlotte to play this game with the intent on winning it instead of just going to Charlotte for the evening. Jeff Long is out as the AD at Arkansas. And I'm sure Brett Bielema won't be far behind as that situation continues to crumble.
But he's still on the committee.
Indeed. Just a couple of basketball games tonight, unless I've messed up my schedule. Columbia International at Charleston Southern.
Okay.
Citadel at North Carolina A&T. Last night, Coastal lost to Lamar. Furman beat Elon and raised their Southern Conference championship banner. Winthrop lost at Colorado State, and Upstate lost at Georgia. Of course, tomorrow we've got basketball. Got the tournament at Coastal Carolina. I'll be there. Got the tournament in Charleston. You'll be there. We have a couple of great locations to hang out the next few days.
Got brunch tomorrow with basketball.
11:30. 11:30 tip at the beach. That should be neat. All right.
It's an early tip for you.
Yeah, I'll be there in time. Sindarius Thornwell now starting for the Clips. How about that?
Beverly is injured, so Thornwell gets the start. And
the Celtics have won 13 in a row. So all is good.
Cares?
Unlucky 13.
To the phones we go. We thank you for calling in tonight. If you want to pick up on something we've talked about or get back on the USC-Clemson game next week, we've got thus far predictions. People picking Clemson, picking them by, well, one person picked them 28-20. What do you think tonight? Let's go to Matt in North Charleston. Matt, good evening. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Thank you, Phil, and the other guys after taking my call.
Yes.
Listen, I used to call on a regular basis, especially when K-Mac was there. And I love to hear the discussion of you guys as well as most of the callers that call in. But I just want to make a few comments, and most of the comments I'm going to make, if you let me make them, and I'll go ahead and listen off the air, it applies to Clemson. And if they lose, then all of it's a moot point. But I've been following Alabama, Clemson, and Carolina for 40-plus years. And the thing is, if you look at the first game of the season, Alabama gets all these great props for beating Florida State, which was ranked preseason third in the nation. They lost their quarterback in the game. But even with or without that, however you want to look at it, Alabama already had that game decided before Florida State even scored again late in the game. Now look at Clemson. They played Florida State and they beat them handily, but Florida State, we found out, they lost several players, and they were not nearly as good as they were as far as they were supposed to be preseason before they racked up all the injuries. You look at Notre Dame, they got all kinds of love in the world for a 1-point loss. A loss for Georgia.
That's called a good loss.
Clemson beats Louisville on the road, which at that time I think was ranked in the top 7.
Doesn't matter now. They've lost 4 games.
Yeah,
but when they played them, they were good.
Doesn't matter.
They were still a top 15 team. They beat Virginia Tech on the road. That's no easy show up in Blacksburg. Then they beat NC State at Raleigh. That's not easy either for most teams to win at Raleigh like they did. I understand the Clemson defense hasn't shown up like we think they would because they're supposed to be all world beaters, and sometimes they play to the level of the competition. I also understand that in games they should show up, they make it a heart attack at the end because we don't know whether they're going to win or not. It's like they're trying to pull defeat from the jaws of victory. I understand all that. But if they're going to give love to all these teams that they want to push ahead of Clemson, and let me tell you this here, I was a Miami hater, but I love Miami now because of Mark Richt, because he's turned the program around and he's a decent coach. But going back to the present situation is, they want to push Miami ahead of Clemson. They want to push these other teams ahead of Clemson. Listen, none of those teams, and I'm talking, and I'm an Alabama fan, buddy, none of the teams in the top 10 have the resume that Clemson had. I don't care how you look at it. And you can say that the quarterback there at, the running back for Auburn wasn't in the game. Well, they had Stidham, the quarterback that's supposed to be such a hot shot. He got sacked 11 times. I mean, how do you explain that? I don't know.
Yeah, we got to jump in. You and I are pretty much on the same page. I believe you judge a team against the team when you play the team. And he makes a good point.
Doesn't matter.
He makes a point.
And here's the point.
The Florida State team that Clemson beat was not the Florida State team that Alabama beat. So Alabama should get more credit
for that. And the Auburn team that
Clemson
beat is not the Auburn team now.
But it was except for the running back, it was a healthy team. It was a ranked team, and it was a good team.
Was in his second game as quarterback at Auburn.
I'll give you that. Auburn is better now than it was then, but you can't take that fully away from Clemson.
The big guys are up next. Corey Miller and Will Merritt. It's the M&M Boys. This is Sports Talk.
It is time here on Sports Talk for the M&M Boys. We welcome in two of the greats, Will Merritt, Clemson, Corey Miller, Gamecocks. All right, Corey, Tigers number 2, rising in the polls, headed for the playoffs and another national championship. Your thoughts?
Good. First of all, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
Want to make sure I sound good. We all good there? You can hear me?
You sound good, sir. You look good.
I
You
do.
smell good. You sound good.
That's a little bit too much. But anyway, somewhat shocking that Cornblue. I thought Clemson probably would be for my I had Miami and Oklahoma in front of them, but with Alabama being number 1. But I was shocked they went to 2. I think most people with any kind of common sense was shocked by this whole number 2 ranking. But at the end of the day, it don't mean anything right now. There's still games to be played. All these teams pretty much going to be playing each other. But again, I think I'm just shocked with this committee. As I said, the last couple of weeks, very inconsistent on their thinking. You can go by the metrics and all the stuff that they're going by, but they use these excuses and why this team is this and giving passes for losing and basically going against other teams like Oklahoma, and they want to penalize them for losing to Iowa State, a better team. Clemson lost to a team with 4 wins in Syracuse and put them number 2. I understand that if you go based on what they use, what the 6 or 7 wins, what it was, what Clemson has over winning teams, teams with winning records, But come on, man. I mean, you look how they played against Florida State, 17-14 in the fourth quarter, 6 minutes to go. This game could have gone either way. They hadn't played well. Didn't play well against NC State. So when you look at what the eye test and how they're trending as far as playing on the field, it doesn't look good. And so to put them at number 2, to me was ludicrous. But at the end of the day, they got to play Miami. Alabama has to play Auburn and/or Georgia. So it also going to work out at the end of the day.
Will,
Amen. Amen,
Will,
Pastor. Amen.
Do you have the common sense that Corey's asking about?
I have a lot more common sense than Corey's talking about. But I'll tell you this. It did surprise me. I'm not going to lie to you and say it did surprise me that they ended up at number 2. It doesn't surprise me that Clemson is getting the vote of confidence by the committee. I mean, this is 15 consecutive college football playoff polls that Clemson's been in. The only other team to do that's Alabama. And so, I mean, this is 15 times they've been ranked in the top 4 in a row. So the committee is going to look favorably at this club as far as the consistency of what they have done when playoff time comes. Now, I know you don't go off of yesteryear. You don't go off of 2 years ago. You go off of this body of work. But, this is also a team with one stumble on a Friday night up in Syracuse that Corey loves to, keep harping on. And that's fine. But the only intelligent thing Corey said is the fact that the proof is going to be in the pudding over the next few weeks. I mean, if you want to prove that you belong in the top 4, you'll have a chance, against South Carolina, Billy Bryce, and you'll have a chance to do it against Miami in the championship game. So the litmus test up until this point they've passed, but yet I think the largest hurdle to overcome is yet to be seen. I think this is a Miami team that is playing significantly better than they were in August and September. And even in October. I mean, November has been Miami's month. So Clemson is catching Miami at a very, very hot time right now. And so if they want to continue the streak and play for a 3rd consecutive national title, they're going to have a tough test up in Charlotte. But I do believe that Clemson deserves to be in the top 4. There's no question about it. And honestly, guys, I don't really give a rat's fat tail if they land at 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you're in the top 4, you're in the dance.
Well, that's kind of what I'm
really
saying.
All you try to do.
That's what I'm kind of saying, Will. Like we could sit here and parse, 2, 3, or 4. But the fact of the matter is, I think all of us, at least in this room, believe that Clemson's one of the 4 best teams in the playoff. But I think to what Corey's point is trying to make is that it seems like this committee kind of changes its criteria week by week and almost decision by decision. You can sit here and glorify a loss to Georgia, but the fact that you ignore Clemson's loss to Syracuse, and again, I know that Kelly Bryant didn't play in the game, but the fact of the matter is you only had 7 offensive points in that football game, and your defense was getting lit up like a Christmas tree.
Well, there's no question about it, and that was one of the worst performances. But let me say this: the reason why you have inconsistency in the committee is simply this: you added the human element, and with human element, you add inconsistency. That's what humans do. We're not consistent on a daily basis. Now, I do believe there is some consistent factors that they use, but when you add the human element in it, you get guys in a room, discussion starts taking place. They're going to say, oh, well, the last 2 times out, this Clemson team played on Oklahoma, if you will. They destroyed them. Now, is Oklahoma a better team this year? Sure they are. Is Clemson probably not as good as they were last year? Probably not. Okay? I mean, it's
but didn't you just say you don't live in yesteryear? Didn't you just get finished saying that you don't live in yesterday and what Clemson did 2 years ago? That don't mean anything. I mean, and I do believe, and I'm that one guy that think Wisconsin should be in the top 4 and not Clemson. That's me. I believe you're undefeated in the Power 5, and I know they look at the strength of schedule and who they play You're 10-0.
Do you think
Wisconsin
Wisconsin would beat Clemson right
did
now?
to Iowa last week, 66 yards. That's all they gave up. I mean, a good team that just waxed Ohio State a couple of weeks ago. I like Wisconsin. I got Clemson at 5 in my own personal poll. But again, you know, I look at a lot with the eye test. I do. I mean, I've been around this game a long time. When I look at this football team, I see a Clemson team. They can tell me about the teams they play with winning records. That don't mean crap to me. What I look at when I see a team struggling against a 3-6 Florida State team, I see a team struggle against an average NC State team. Who, by the way, what do they think having NC State at 19? I mean, are you kidding me? So they're struggling there. I mean, you're struggling in the fourth quarter against Boston College. You're struggling against Wake Forest. I mean, that's what I look at. And then you say, well, this team, and, you know, the quarterback went out in the second quarter, and we're going to relook at that, and that's the reason why we were putting Clemson here. Listen, I agree with some guys that said this today. I believe that they have Dabo Swinney pictures in their room, and they so in love. You got this love fest. And
Oh, Corey,
you're throwing these coaches, and all they do is smoke together. And you got to be kidding me. There's no reason. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous to be laughable because the human element will look at this football team and say, maybe they're not that good. Yeah, they're getting by beating some average teams. Virginia Tech's not even in the top 25 anymore. Louisville's out of the top 25. The best win is Auburn. But if they want to give Clemson the pass, let me throw this at you. If Kerryon Johnson, Auburn's best player, he didn't play against Clemson. I mean, so Petway banged up against Clemson. So why don't we throw that ball out there for Auburn?
Let Will talk for a second. Go ahead.
Well, let me first of all, there's not a scenarical proposition that you're going to throw out there that is not going to sit there and go, you still like where you are. And Corey, listen, I'm glad you have your own personal poll, and that means about as much as a bag of ice to a polar bear. Nobody gives a crap about you.
Yeah, it means a lot to people that listen to knowledge and not people that are straight up homers and won't look at reality. Like, you know, open your eyes, and you played football, right? You should be able to see football team. I know you're a fan. I know you're an alumni. But be realistic that this team is not playing like a top 4 team. You know that.
Okay. It doesn't matter to me because I'm not voting. Okay, I'm not in that committee. I'm not in that room, and neither are you. Praise Jesus. You're not in that room. But let me tell you,
if I was in there, they definitely would be out because I keep it real. I'm not gonna get caught up with the praise the Lord, hallelujah, with Dabo on the field and all the theatrics and antics and the feel good stories. Look at the reality of what happens on the field. And right
you'll have plenty of reality.
Not just by ESPN and everybody else. It is what it is, and that's the truth.
All right.
Hey, listen, you'll have plenty of reality check in 2 weeks, big boy. Don't worry about it.
All right, listen, we're gonna talk about that in a second. Everybody keeps bringing up Clemson and Auburn. Okay, yeah, Johnson didn't play. Do you remember that Auburn had 117 yards against Clemson? 117.
Yeah,
Georgia against that fabulous Georgia defense last week. Will, how many yards did Auburn put on Georgia?
I don't know the exact number.
About 500 and something.
Yeah,
about 500 and something.
But I didn't know.
But the yards aren't the key. The yards is how much experience that Stidham had versus the experience he had when he walked into Death Valley.
I will say this: they're a better team. All right, 400. They had 488 yards against Georgia, 237 on the ground.
How many points did they score against Syracuse?
Keep talking about Syracuse like it was.
People keep trying to make like it didn't happen.
John's the Baptist.
It's happened. The
Junior
loss
High School.
happened.
All right, we'll be back. More M&M Boys in a moment.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Okay, we're back. It's the M&M boys here on Sports Talk. Will Merritts and Corey Miller. Always a pleasure having these two legends of their respective universities with us here on the program. And, of course, we'll get down and dirty with the Gamecocks and the Tigers next week leading into the Palmetto Bowl. But both teams are playing triple option offenses this Saturday. So, Corey, from a defensive standpoint, I want to ask both of you the same a question. Similar question, a little different take. We'll start with you, Corey. Defensively, how do you fend off the cut block? Will, offensively, and you'll answer after Corey, did you regularly cut block people back in your day? Go first, Corey.
Well, it's one of those games you hate playing because you're playing against an inferior opponent most of the time. For South Carolina, we have lost to twice, which is embarrassing. But, you got to play disciplined football. And at this point in time of the year, you work on kind of trying to stay healthy, but you got to play great with your eyes. And a lot of times guys have a tendency trying to look at the ball carrier while guys getting at your legs. So you got to be able to play good defensive football with your eyes, use your hands to, kind of get back off those blocks, stay on your feet. As what Muschamp said, if you're on the ground, you can't help your football team. It's a tough challenge because it's discipline. You got to, if you got to dive, you got to take the dive with quarterback end on pitch. You can't try to do too much. You have to do your job. And that becomes hard because you think you got the big shot and then you make a mistake and there goes a guy, running 80 yards on the pitch play. So very disciplined football is going to be required, but for South Carolina and Clemson defensively, I think these guys are going to be concerned with just trying to stay healthy because anytime you're getting at the knees and the ankles, there's a great potential for injury. So it's one of those games at this time of the year I would definitely hate playing.
Will?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would hate it if I was a defensive player as well. I mean, you saw Clemson play Georgia Tech a few weeks ago and look at the injuries that mounted up in that ball game just with all the cut blocking that Georgia Tech does and the called chop blocking and things of that nature. You posed the question, did I ever cut block? And the answer is yes. A cut block is used typically when you are the inferior player. So I use a cut block quite often. No, but in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, the cut block, in my opinion, gives the offense a much more of an advantage than a defensive player because once you get their hands on the ground, then you can roll, you can get on top of them, you can take them completely out of the play. The defensive linemen, defensive ends, and even the linebackers in a triple option defensive scenario, they have to play with their hands so much. Keep the blockers off their knees, shins, and thighs. So their hands are constantly down. You don't see balls batted down there as much. You really, really have to play, like Corey said, with your eyes and hands. I do not like playing teams that run this type of offense. It is very, very difficult. And typically you hold your breath for 4 quarters, not trying to lose one of your big players, one of your starters going down the stretch.
Yeah, Corey, the philosophy behind all this talk about the cut block is the fact that, like Will said, the reason why a lot of these teams will use it is because you go up against teams a lot of times where you're playing athletically superior talent. So you use the cut block as a way, almost will like as a great equalizer there. And the only time when I would say the cut block is a dirty play is when you're cutting a guy who's already engaged, which is a penalty.
A chop block.
Yeah. Yeah, cut block and that chop block is totally different. And you're right, it is a great neutralizer when you're playing an inferior opponent. So, I mean, it is what it is. You practice that. We used to have to practice it live back in the day when I was playing, and now you can't do that. You just can't risk getting guys hurt. So it's hard to really give a good look in practice. So it's one of those games, back when it happened to me in 1990 in my senior year, we lost. I mean, just undisciplined, getting cut guys on the ground. And Civil, which had a good football team too, by the way, in 1990. Ended up beating us 38-35, getting the ball last and then scooping in the end zone. So it's one of those tricky, dangerous games that both these teams should be okay because offensively they should be able to capitalize because they cut on the defense. So that they should be able to run past cornerbacks and run the football. So they should be okay as far as winning the game.
All right, next week we'll get the complete breakdown for you from you on USC Clemson. But on our website, on our poll question, what should the line be for the game? Clemson by 14 or more, Clemson 7-13, a pick'em, or USC by 7 or more. About 42% of the votes are saying Clemson by 7 to 13. About 18% say USC by 7.
Easy.
31% say Clemson by 14. What do you think the line will come in on Sunday when Vegas sits down and sets it? What do you think it should be, Corey, looking ahead?
I think it's going to be 10 points. South Carolina will being at home will be a great crowd of that night. And South Carolina's playing better football. It should be 8-3. So I think the line is going to be somewhere in the 10 range. It's not going to be 14 plus. And the fact that Clemson they're going to look at as what I said, which is reality. Clemson is not playing good football. They got people hurt on defense. They're struggling at home against teams. Then you got to go to a tough stadium in the rival game where anything can happen. So I still expect it to be a double digit, like 10 to 12 points.
What about you, Will?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think South Carolina, I think it bodes well for them for this game to be at 8 o'clock at night. I think it bodes very well for them. I've played at night games down there. It is a tough environment. I think that does play into South Carolina's favor, getting the crowd into it. I still think it's going to be that 7 to 13 parameter that you gave there as far as your poll is concerned. I would not be surprised at all to see this game very, very close going into the fourth quarter. I think that both teams will be playing off of emotion. South Carolina obviously wants to get Clemson out of the discussion. Here we are talking about whether Clemson should be 2 or 4. South Carolina would love nothing more than to just eliminate Clemson from the discussion altogether. And obviously the Tigers have a little bit greater sights in their mind. So, at the end of the day, whatever the line comes out to be, it doesn't matter a whole lot to me. But I think if you're going to prognosticate a little bit right now, I think you're going to see 2 to 3 possession type line be able to be dropped on that game. Weren't
you there that night in Columbia and they were chanting your name from one side of the stadium to the other? Will. Wasn't that you?
That was actually at Carolina Wing House later on that night when I was going for the wing eating contest. So, no, listen, I'll tell you, I've had some memorable games down there, and it's they are not too kind to the brethren in orange. Let's put it that way.
And they're going to be ripe. They're going to be Gamecock fans.
There's a lot of beverages that's going to be being consumed.
They're going to,
and God knows what else. But
they're going to be frothing at the mouth to get at the Tigers.
I'm looking forward to it, guys. After that 56-7 shellacking that South Carolina took last year, Jake Bentley making a promise. So, I mean, this should be a fun game. I think it's great. The South Carolina will have a chance probably to sneak into that top 25 next week. So, they give them a national televised game. I think it's great for the state to be able to show off 2 great universities at the end of the day. And again, as Will said, South Carolina on the play for them is knocking Clemson out. I mean, so that's a big deal to them. And Clemson's got to come ready to play. If they're not ready to play, they can get beat in this ball game. And they got back-to-back weeks with turnover change going to be waiting at Bank of America Stadium. So you start to think about that. This is tough, as Will said, this is a tough stretch, 2 weeks for Clemson, 2.5 weeks coming up. For them to try to get by. But if they do, as I said, they deserve to be in that Final Four, but they're going to be challenged for sure.
Guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, turnover chain.
We broke Corey, no?
Telling you. They're great tonight. The M&M boys here on Sports Talk.
It's interesting that you look at those cut blocks and keep an eye on whose linemen start to kind of limp off during these 2 games coming up this weekend.
Well, that's something that Dabo Swinney talked about earlier this week. He's probably going to hold Dexter Lawrence out to guard against those cut blocks, and guys who might be playing on the line or normally would have played on the line who are borderline might not necessarily play because of that.
I was just looking here. Corey's talking about the year he played, senior year. They lost to the Citadel.
Jack Douglas, the quarterback.
And really good Citadel team. Gamecocks did not go to a bowl game that year. They finished 6-5. Remember, they played West Virginia in Columbia on Thanksgiving.
Right.
Beat them 29-10. Should have gone to a bowl game that year, and the year before they went 6-4-1 and didn't go bowl.
Exam schedule
Something about the exams, yeah.
Right.
And people want to say Sparky Woods didn't accomplish anything at South Carolina, but he should have had 2 bowl trips with those 2 6-win teams, but the university wouldn't let them go to a lower level bowl, but it still would have been a bowl, something you could have built on, extra practice, recruiting, and all that. All right, top of the hour. We'll be back. All righty. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. The early basketball signing period ended on Wednesday without Zion Williamson of Spartanburg Day signing with anyone. He took official visits to Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky, unofficial visits to USC and Clemson. Of course, he can commit anytime and then sign. Let's do it one more time. Crap. 3, 2, 1. The early basketball signing period ended on Wednesday with Zion Williamson of Spartanburg not signing with anyone. He has taken officials to Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky, and unofficials to USC and Clemson. He can, of course, commit at any time, but he'll have to wait until April now to sign with the school of his choice. Meantime, USC was in to watch 6'11" Brandon Stone, the 2019 standout, in Arden, North Carolina. Gamecocks saw him play last night against Williamson's team. That would have been 2 nights ago. One more time. In 3, 2, 1. The basketball early signing period ended on Wednesday with 6'6" Zion Williamson of Spartanburg not signing with anybody. He's taken officials to Duke, North Carolina, and officials to USC and Clemson. Of course, he can commit at any point, but he can't sign now until April. This week to watch 6'11" Brandon Stone of the 2019 class perform. It's possible he could reclassify to the 2018 class. USC is very strongly in the mix with him. He's also looking at Ohio State and Purdue. USC women missed on 6'4" Olivia Nelson Adoda of Winder, Georgia. She signed with Connecticut. In football, defensive end Dorian Gerald, College of the Canyons Junior College in California, plans to reschedule his official to USC for January. Phil Kornbluth, South Carolina Radio Network Sports.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Willie P., Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. They are all with us tonight. We'll have SC Wild coming up at the bottom of this hour. Captain Downer already here sharing some of his football knowledge with us. Looking forward to the Citadel Clemson game where he thinks his Bulldogs are going to be just fine. He wants the Tigers and the Bulldogs to get together in a rifle contest because if the Citadel can't beat everybody in rifling, then we got a problem.
We're in trouble. We're in trouble.
Real trouble covering our coast down there.
How about marksmanship?
Line of first defense. Citadel.
I always, whenever I see that NCAA rifle competition, I'm always surprised to see schools like West Virginia finish ahead of the Army and things like that in our service academies. I'm like, why shouldn't the service academies be first?
Got to be first. Got to be first.
They're aiming at stop signs along those country roads in West Virginia.
West Virginia.
They are very good at burning couches. Sneaky good at burning couches.
What was the nickname for Mr. Bradley at USC, the basketball player?
The
West Virginia long rifle. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Are we ready to go a little give and go here on Sports Talk? Plenty of basketball to talk about here in South Carolina with these tournaments beginning tomorrow at Coastal Carolina and at Charleston. Big national games last night. Basketball season fully upon us. We give you our Give and Go segment here on Sports Talk. Remind us to give Jordan Roper, but we've got to go. Aaron Lucas. Good evening, Mr. Lucas. How are you?
Doing pretty good, guys. Thank you again for having me on.
Our pleasure. You got to carry the entire load tonight. Mr. Roper had an appointment he could not miss. We'll get him back with us next week. So, Gamecocks, your guys, couple of games in, couple of one-sided victories. So they had to pull away from Western Michigan in the second half the other night. What's your early take on what you've seen?
Again, I think after seeing them, in the first couple games, I think Coach Martin and his staff is still trying to figure out, where guys are fitting, what style of play. Obviously, defense is still going to be a priority, but offensively, what certain guys can do and, just figuring out who's going to be the go-to guy at certain points during the game. And, you see a little bit of that against Western Michigan where different guys are getting touches and just being aggressive. I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen so far is that several of the young guys are being aggressive and assertive early just to build that confidence.
Yeah, it's weird looking at this team. You thought that there was going to be a lot of leadership from the returning guys, but I'm seeing a lot from some of the freshmen and first-year players, and two freshmen, Aaron, that I'm very, very impressed with so far. Justin Minaya, who has a lot of glue guy characteristics, stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, and Felipe Haase, his ability to stretch the floor, especially when he's on the floor with Mike Kotsar. To me, those two guys have stood out. Have they stood out to you?
Absolutely. I think Minaya shows that he can be that glue guy. It reminds me a little bit of Brenton Williams, who played for us a couple years ago. And I think once he gets more confidence offensively, he'll be able to add those little, stat stuffers that, we're accustomed to seeing certain guys do. I think Justin Mackey did a good job with his time of play, over the last couple of years when he got in. He was able to be a stat stuffer. Didn't show up a lot as far as the official stats, but when coaches go back in the locker room, they'll see those different things. Felipe Haas obviously adds some size, adds a new dimension to the offense with a stretch four who can step out and shoot the ball. And he shows a lot of savvy on the offensive end as well, and appears to be a solid rebounder also.
Coach Frank calls it his baby, his defense. we have just a small sample size of 2 games, Aaron. Are you surprised about how the guys are really meshing this early, playing that in your jock defense that Frank Martin wants?
Well, no, not at all. I think again, when you look at the structure of recruiting and looking to find guys that fit, your style of play, I think Coach Martin and the staff does a great job of finding guys who are already buying into that process. So once they get on the campus and learn some of the structure of the defense, you're bringing in guys with that ilk, and they already have an understanding that defense is a main priority. So once you start teaching them the fundamentals of your defense, with them already having that go-to attitude defensively, I think it's just a great recipe of success when you're talking about teaching guys early and being able to implement that.
Talking with Aaron Lucas, give and go here on Sports Talk, breaking down the Gamecocks season thus far. 2-0 start. We'll play Illinois State tomorrow morning. What about did you ever, as a player, have a tip-off prior to noon in the Eastern time zone? They're tipping off at 11:30 in the morning. You ever face that early morning start? And if so, what's it like to have to kind of roll out of bed and get on the hardwood and be active and enthusiastic and energetic?
Wow, you're dating me a little bit. The last time I stepped on the floor collegiately was roughly 17 years ago. So, 15 years ago. But anytime we had those noon games, particularly against Georgia, towards the end of the season, those games are always challenging because you have to get up earlier than you normally do. Your routine is pushed ahead a couple of hours. So, it was difficult for a certain degree, but our preparation, Coach Fogler, Coach Dave Odom as well, your preparation is what gets you there. So, you can change the time you start your routine, but your routine is the same. So I think Coach Martin will do a good job of preparing his guys and having them ready to play at an early game.
And the thing about this for both Clemson and South Carolina, because they're going away to 2 tournaments where they have to play 3 games in 4 days. The turnaround time and the prep time is very limited. What is the key to playing in a situation of this nature where you have such quick turnarounds, you have limited scouts on all those teams, and really you're having to rely a lot on your own system versus what you know about your opposition?
Well, and that's typically what the early games are about, is just solidifying the foundation of what you're teaching as a team and trying to stick to what you do best. And you hear coaches and players across the country throughout the year say, we're going to do what we do. And I think that's one of those situations early on where you set the foundation, you've had a couple games to start building on it, you had a chance to go back and analyze, your pluses and your minuses. But at the same time, you're still, again, you're setting that foundation. We have to do what we're accustomed to doing, and hopefully that will allow you to be better than the other team that day.
Got about a minute left. Early part of the season here. Anything catch your eye around the state, around the country that you've seen basketball-wise here early?
I think obviously with Duke coming in with their lineup and some of the guys that they have, obviously having a veteran leader like Grayson Allen on the floor, they obviously are going to be there again to compete, possibly for a national championship. Also, same thing with North Carolina, adding a lot of young pieces, but you're seeing guys step into new roles and take on leadership roles to keep their team in that standing. So I think all over the country, it's a new landscape. You're seeing a lot of guys come and go, but at the same time, you're also seeing guys step up into new roles and start to create a name for themselves.
Kentucky impress you early or not with all their young guys? I mean, basically starting 5 freshmen or close to it.
I mean, every year Kentucky is always impressive on the stat sheet as far as you're looking at names, you're looking at size. But anytime you step into this type of climate, at the D1 level, at a high level, and having that type of bullseye on your back, it's very difficult, and you can never gauge a learning curve for a freshman. They can have all the talent in the world, but learning curve is something that you can never gauge.
Thank you, Aaron. We have to run, man. We appreciate it. Be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back into Sports Talk, everyone. South Carolina Radio Network. Thanks again to Aaron Lucas for being with us tonight. Hopefully we'll have both of our guys, our good guys, with us next week as we head deeper into the college basketball season. Want to remind you, tickets are now available for the upcoming Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, the annual North-South game. They're $15 online at touchstoneenergybowl.com. Plus, you can go online and enter to win 2 tickets to the game, a $100 Visa gift card, and free Touchstone Energy merchandise. Go to the website scliving.coop/touchdown, scliving.coop, COOP/touchdown. December 1 is the deadline to enter. This note, the Big South announced today that USC Upstate is joining the league.
Congrats.
Effective next academic year, pending the approval of the USC Board of Trustees. The membership will begin July 1. Well, good for them. That's a nice addition in all their sports. Upstate has been good in basketball, very good in baseball at times. Other sports, no football, of course. I wonder if they're thinking about adding football one day at Upstate.
And, of course, less travel time. The Atlantic Sun, a lot of trips down to Florida they had to take.
So this is good. I think this is a win-win for the Big South, which needs schools and a good place for Upstate to be.
Would be a 4th school in the Palmetto State as far as the Big South goes.
Let's see. Presbyterian, Upstate,
Winthrop and
Charleston Southern, and Winthrop. Yeah.
I can count.
Yep, and 2 of those play football. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. We'll give you that.
I can count.
Recruiting now here on Sports Talk. As we touched on earlier, early signing period ended today. Zion Williamson, let's see, signs. I guess you can sign up until midnight. I'm not sure there is a time deadline on this thing.
Doesn't he have to fax it in by midnight? Is that what that is?
I'd have to look up the rules.
Just make sure
as far as we know, he hasn't done anything yet.
You got guys at all these schools and the compliance departments wait until midnight.
Opened his season last night. I've seen 2 different scoring totals. I've seen some stories having him at 46, some having him at 45.
That's a 45.
Yeah. Wasn't there. Can't tell you for sure. Anyway, as we mentioned, he was the reporters were barred by his stepfather from asking recruiting questions. So just to recap the facts, he took officials to Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, unofficials to USC and Clemson. He did not show up for recently planned unofficials to USC and Clemson, visits that were confirmed by his mother. They just weren't rumors. His mom said he was going. Didn't show up. North Carolina coach Roy Williams was in yesterday, according to Inside Carolina. That's the North Carolina website. A source who was at last night's game told us Kentucky was going to be in today for a visit. Williamson has said he wants to make his college announcement with his family and friends at his school, Spartanburg Day. Source told us last night he plans to tweet at least a week in advance when he will make that announcement. So he'll give everybody a heads up.
Because he wants the attention.
Apparently. Well, listen, I don't put anything on the kids. I think the people around them, the adults in this case, I have to question some of the things there. Not the kid. I don't think. I mean, the kids are pulled and pushed by the people around them for the most part.
But they have to like the attention.
He has never I've talked to him very little, never been really around him, so I can't tell you. He seems like a very humble young man. He seems to me like he's taken this all in stride. He gives a lot of his time to sign autographs. I think people are making more of him right now than they should, calling him the next LeBron, the next this, the next that. I mean, we got to see what he can do at the next level on a regular basis.
So you blame the crowd.
He doesn't play the toughest of high school schedules.
No.
Okay, he does play a tough AAU schedule, or did when he played AAU, and he'll be in some premier holiday events. But game in and game out, when they get to their league, he's not playing very tough competition. Not to take anything away from his skills and talents. He obviously is all of that. I've never seen him do anything but dunk. You know, I'm sure he has a lot more to his game than just a dunk. But we've seen a lot of people come and go who's supposed to be the next this and next that. And let's just let the kid enjoy his senior year in high school and then let him go to college for if he's that 1 year guy and do his thing. Who knows? He might be in college for a couple of years.
I got it.
No guarantee you're going to be one and done or good enough to do it.
I have to have the feeling that sometimes he probably feels like the tail of a runaway kite. He doesn't know where he's going. You look at his body type, he looks like he needs to get with a good personal trainer and dietitian. And if he gets his body really shape,
upper body,
he will be dynamite. He looks athletically like
a lot of those guys.
Have you ever seen him on film make a jump shot from outside 15, 20
a couple of times?
Have you ever seen? You've seen it?
I've seen it on the HUDL, the Hoodle thing.
Huddle.
Huddle.
Yeah, Hoodle. Anyway, other basketball.
What I said, the HUDL. That's what I said. That's what I said.
Hoodle. He said Hoodle.
Relax.
USC coach Frank Martin, do we call him Coach Frank now? Because in your question to Aaron, you referred to him as Coach Frank.
I just did that to abbreviate it because I know our time was short.
I mean, you must be very close with him to call him Coach Frank.
Emily told me I could do it.
The only Coach Frank at USC was Frank McGuire. Okay, this is Frank Martin. Coach Frank was Frank McGuire. Frank Martin,
lighten up, Francis.
Frank Martin and a couple of assistants were at the game last night. They were there, too, to watch Brandon Stone, 6'11", 2019 prospect, though he still could return to the 2018 class. See, this is the next thing that's getting abused in recruiting. This is the next thing. Okay, I'm declaring for 2019 so I can go to a prep school and be re-recruited. But then once you start getting a whole lot of interest, the schools say, hey, man, why don't you reclassify back to 2018? You can come on and sign now and come into school this year. So right now he's in the 2019 class. He told us last night that he has a great relationship with South Carolina, going to visit again soon. He's going to also be visiting Ohio State and Purdue, may take an official to South Carolina if he decides to go back to the 2018 class. Source told us last night the word around that gym from people there watching and maybe some coaches was that Stone was almost locked up by South Carolina, but he hasn't said that yet. Olivia Nelson Adoda of Winder, Georgia, committed to and signed with UConn today over South Carolina. Football, defensive back Brendan Radley Hiles of IMG Academy wrote in his diary for diehards.com. Can we start a diary for recruits to write for Sports Talk SC? Can we get recruits to do that so that we can have diaries and, inner thoughts? We're going to call ours Inner Thoughts.
Dear Diary.
Anyway, he wrote that he'll visit UCLA next weekend, going to Clemson this weekend. His mother and brother, he wrote, will join him at Clemson. He's also been in Nebraska, Texas, and Oklahoma. Defensive end Dorian Gerald, College of the Canyons Junior College, rescheduled his official to USC for January, or he will. He was scheduled for this weekend, but he found out Monday his team has a bowl game this weekend, so he can't leave them. He does plan to take an unofficial visit to USC for the Clemson game. We'll have more on this story on our website later tonight. After talking with Dorian earlier today, he shared some pretty interesting stuff. We'll have it on our website for you later on tonight and then talk about it tomorrow night on the program. Dorman offensive lineman Jordan McFadden remains a Virginia Tech commitment. Clemson has grown larger in his mirror during the season. It's a pretty good metaphor, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Grown larger in his mirror. This weekend, he'll take his official with the Tigers with his mother, uncle, and cousin joining him. Soon after, he'll make the final call between the Tigers and Hokies. Still pretty strong with his commitment to Virginia Tech. Actually got a little stronger after he went up there not too long ago, but Clemson has been on him very strong. He likes Robbie Caldwell and the job he does with the offensive line. So within about a week of this official visit, he said he hopes to make his final decision. All right, there you go with recruiting. Check it out on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag ST Recruiting. We come back. How about a little SC Wild for you tonight, starring the captain, Billy Downer? That's coming up next.
Shoot up.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Now, really, Willie P and I just here. We're just here for the ride. It's the Captain Billy Downer who is the star of this show. And there he is, just showing off one of his many talents. Do that again. Do that again. This is a duck call. That is so talented. That is not easy to do.
Is that
It's waterfowl season. It's time to start quacking. Yeah.
Is that a mating call?
No, it's not a mating call. That is a hail call.
Hail
Those
what?
are also duck hunters.
Yeah.
That is a duck's greeting to another duck flying by. The mallard duck specifically.
Gotcha.
So welcome in yet another waterfowl season this weekend. So
beautiful.
We're preparing for that. Opening up November the 18th is the opening of the first waterfowl season for 2017. Had Youth Day last Saturday.
Before you talk about that, that is
Sure.
a beautiful piece of wood that you have there for your duck call.
It is. It's a nice piece of wood. This is actually a nice piece of what's called coca-cola, which is a very rich wood. Very oily looking. I mean, it's just got a nice sheen to it. Nice call. A lot of calls made out of coca-cola. We can talk about that more during the show, of course. But just to make one correction as we begin the show.
Yes. You want to talk about
throwing out
the
little
Citadel
jab at the
upsetting
Bulldogs.
Clemson this
Look,
weekend that you think's going to happen. You
look,
think history will repeat itself.
The Bulldogs
2 years ago
are happy to be at Clemson because we get a nice little purse for our program, no doubt.
200,000.
But it's more than we make in one game at our place, okay? So look, but this isn't Carolina.
You're state supported.
If it was
you
Carolina,
get money from right down the street.
If it was Carolina, we may have a chance to beat them again. I mean, hey, it's been two.
Oh,
but I don't think we'll beat Clemson this year.
Listen to you.
But I will be there to support the Dogs, no doubt about it.
You going up there?
I'm going up there.
I'll see you up there.
Wearing Citadel blue. My daughter, my son will be in orange. Just to,
That's sweet.
It's okay.
You going to tailgate with them and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Why not?
That's great. That's great. All right, let's get to the hunting.
Sure.
What's going on?
It's waterfowl season coming up this weekend. Starting up again, the 18th of November is the opening day for waterfowl season. 18th being Saturday. Season starts. A lot of people are probably already out there as we speak. Probably been there maybe for a day or two, out there holding their spot on the public waterways of South Carolina. Yes, people are that mad and frenzied about duck hunting.
You can hold your spot for that long?
Look, some guys will camp out a week prior to the season opening, so we're within that week. So there are people out there that have had their eye on a place where ducks are hanging out, and they're already sitting there. Then there are the folks that have the duck ponds, lots of waterfowl impoundments across the state, a lot of habitat being created there, and those folks are waiting for opening day because they've got their spot. They'll walk out of their truck and walk neatly to their pond into the duck impoundment. A lot easier, not quite as hard as the guys out there sitting on the water in a boat. Salute to all the guys that are still hunting on the public waters. It's a lot harder sometimes than it may have used to been, but a lot of hard work out there can pay off sometimes. Waterfowl season, though, begins again this weekend. Again, South Carolinians, we go historically pursue ducks for years, back into the plantation days. So over hundreds of years now, you could say. We've been successful at harboring ducks. South Carolina, again, being a coastal state, we have a lot of marine estuaries there, which are abundant in food. The old plantations that have old wild rice fields that are still prevalent have lots of different wild food available for ducks. Traditional wintering grounds for waterfowl up and down the South Carolina coast, as well as our Santee National Wildlife Refuge on the edge of Lake Marion. So historically, South Carolina has been a good state for duck hunting. So duck limits this year, what are they? People always want to know, what is the limit this year?
Also known as the daily duck limit.
The daily duck limit is 6 total, not to include more than 4 mallards.
Those are the pretty ones, right? 2
of which can be hens. Mallards are what they look like, the green head.
Yes.
That you see sometimes. Probably one of the most common species you see at ponds. They have been made into pet. It's not. They are a wild species now, but there are so many other species of farm birds and others that have come off the mallard. So it's hard to tell sometimes.
In the duck world, the male is typically better looking than the female, right? In the duck world.
In the waterfowl world, or in the bird world in general, the male is more colorful, of course, to attract the mate. The hen is drab in color to hide the nest, to protect the young. The goal is to raise young.
Don't touch it, Corey.
I'm not getting baited into this conversation.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
I'm just asking.
Let's go back to our limits.
I just think it's amazing how that works out.
4 mallards, 2 hens, 3 wood ducks this year again. So 3 wood ducks, 2 redheads, 2 canvasbacks, 2 scaup. People always ask that. That sometimes have changed, but 2 redheads this year, 2 canvasbacks.
And what is a scaup?
Scaup or bluebill. There's a lesser or greater bluebill. Greater or much larger, almost the size of a mallard in size sometimes. A lesser already more prevalent that you'll see in South Carolina. You will see some graders, but lessers are more prevalent on our waterways. So 1 pintail. Please keep that in mind. It's been 2 in the past couple of years, but it's 1 this year again. 1 pintail. 1 fulvous whistling duck, 1 black-bellied whistling duck, and black ducks and mottled ducks, which have changed. So a couple of things to pay attention to. If you're a avid waterfowler in South Carolina, black duck limits changed a little bit slightly this year. The black duck limit is as follows. For areas east and south of Interstate 95, 1 black duck or 1 mottled duck in the total bag. For areas west and north of 95, 2 black ducks or 1 black duck and 1 mottled duck in the bag.
Is that a terrain issue?
It is about where the ducks reside. Mottled ducks are mostly on the coast. We're trying to protect our mottled ducks. Inland, they decided to give a little more latitude for black ducks to allow you to shoot 2 black ducks if their opportunity presents itself inland, which would be west of 95.
So if you're out duck hunting on your boat, can you pretty much expect that at some point in time a DNR agent's going to come up and want to take a look at what you've got to make sure you're
This
within
is
regulation?
certainly one of those seasons that we have a lot of presence on the water and in the hunting areas for sure, because waterfowl are protected by federal game laws. So we enforce those laws, and we're very much on the scene out there being seen, particularly here in the first week in the duck season, to manage crowds, make sure people are acting correctly. We'll talk about it a little bit later.
Sure.
But how to act, how to be ethical on the water, not to show out. But again, duck season opens up. What do you need to duck hunt? A couple quick things. License requirements. You need a state hunting license, which is $12. You need your migratory bird permit, or the old HIP permit, which is free. Harvest Information Program. That's the questions you ask. You answer when you purchase your license. You're asked how many ducks, how many doves, how many coots, things like that, or geese you may have shot last year. When you get asked that question, that's the HIP permit. It's free. The migratory waterfowl permit, formerly known as your migratory or as your waterfowl South Carolina duck stamp, the state duck stamp. Most hunters today don't get a duck stamp when they purchase that privilege anymore. If you go to the office in Columbia here, or one of our DNR offices around the state, Florence, Charleston, Clemson, you may get a stamp when you go there. But if you order online, if you go to one of our licensed vendors, you're simply going to get the privilege for $5.50. You will not receive a stamp in the mail. So the stamp's not required anymore on your license. The privilege is. The federal duck stamp is required to have on your license and be signed on the face on your license. Now, in the modern world we live in, where people can do things on the internet, you can go to fws.gov, fishandwildlifeservice.gov, and purchase your federal duck stamp there. They will be mailed to you within a certain amount of days. So in the meantime, can you hunt? Yes, you can. Maintain proof of that purchase online of that duck stamp, and you'll be fine. But once you receive the duck stamp, you are required to put it on your license and sign the face of it. The reason that back to the days of why do you have to sign the license, people ask that, it was because people would take a stamp and pass it around the crowd.
Gotcha.
Stick it, lick it, stick it on your license and sign it. That way we know it's
one stamp, one license.
One stamp, one license. That's correct. So cost-wise, just to start hunting, a normal duck hunter in South Carolina spent $42.50 at a minimum. If they get a WMA permit, they spent up to $73. It's $30.50 to add the WMA privilege, and that gives you the opportunity to be able to hunt on some of our great Category 2 or Category 1 areas. Category 2 areas differ from 1 in that they are first come, first serve. Our department's done a great job in opening up some areas across the state that are called Category 2 that are open on certain days of the week. And we can talk more about that when we come back from the break.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to hear the difference between Category 1, Category 2, break those down, and why they're called what they're called. It is waterfowl hunting season here on SC Wild. We're talking duck hunting and hunting of other things that fly. And the good captain is going to give us another taste of his ability here. Oh, I'd come looking for you if I heard that. We'll be right back.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
And we continue with Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Wednesday night, SC Wild edition. We have the Captain Billy Downer in studio. It's waterfowl hunting season. Before we get back to that, though, he is the captain's going to serenade us here with a variety of duck calls that he has at his disposal.
Absolutely.
Those are all
Phil
really
has lots of
creative looking
questions for
things
us
there.
that are waterfowl hunters, and I got to give a lot of credit to folks out there. Mark Ackerman, good friend of mine, Citadel grad.
Mm-hmm. All your friends, Citadel grads?
Duck call maker.
you have any friends who aren't Citadel
been making
brands?
handmade calls for years. I have lots of friends, and they are not all Citadel people, but I'm going to shout out to the Citadel folks when we can.
Good deal.
No doubt about it.
Good deal. So
But,
let's hear something here.
Well, duck calls, basically, and Phil, folks, for those of you that know, the guys on the other end of this radio here that are duck hunters are going to go, this is dumb. I already know this. But for Phil, who doesn't know much, we're going to teach him something tonight.
Knows nothing.
Basic duck calls, there's 3 basic duck calls. The basic duck call, you've got your quack, and everybody knows what a duck sounds like. The quack. The quack is very simple.
Mhm.
It's quack.
Quack.
You've got your feed call, which is a very simple, a real simple call, a ticka-tucka type sound in your mouth. Ticka, 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 ticka. You do that with your feet, call it this.
Is it better that I kind of want to see Corn try it?
We tried this before.
That is a duck call. You notice I'm rolling right through that because I'm not even going there. That'll take farther long.
If you want a stream of saliva flying through your duck call,
Yes,
you want me
correct.
to try it.
But that's the call that ducks.
Do you have to
actually
get your
make.
lips to vibrate to make the call work? Is that how?
Yes, tongue.
It's like
tongue.
it's,
back the
it's
throat.
like trumpet. It's like a trumpet.
Then you've got the hail call, which you've heard me do several times already. But the hail call is what ducks do. A hen doing all these calls to a duck coming from the air. Hail call. Hey, I'm down here. Five calls or more. It's a hail call. So there's your basic duck calling lesson.
Now you have
for beginners.
a few other.
We do have other calls.
Yeah.
And in the modern day of making calls, you've got lots of. You got a wood duck call. You got your mallard drake call.
Mallard.
The drake. You've got your widgeon whistle.
Your what?
Your widgeon whistle. Widgeon's another type of duck.
Okay.
Now you can't bring that
Pintail whistle there.
You can't bring that necklace into
Your
Death
widgeon
Valley.
whistle. You got
Yeah, you can't. You
that
can't,
won't make it past security.
and then you've got teal.
How do you know which one to use?
It's for
You
different
have
ducks.
to be able to identify the duck on the wing, and that for most waterfowlers, even those that have been hunting for a while, is a challenge sometimes in low light and fast moving duck to tell what a duck is. Size, bill color. Again, they got to be close to see bill color, but bill color is probably one of those secrets that most folks learn over time is the best way to identify ducks. Wings, wing beat, the wing shape, widgeon wing shape like a boomerang in the air. You see that. Again, the sounds they make, you can hear the sounds they make. Mallards will be quacking, chuckling, things like that. You know, the feed call, those kind of things you'll hear.
Is it easier to hunt the duck at night or in daytime?
You cannot hunt waterfowl. And that's a good question. Let's answer that right now.
Yes, you cannot.
You have to hunt waterfowl between
certain hours.
30 minutes before official sunrise.
Come on,
to
Yankee boy.
Sunset.
Everybody knows that.
So you cannot
You
hunt
are
waterfowl.
you are such
at
a liar. You would have known that if you would have asked you right now.
Let me ask you this: of these
Legal shooting hours for ducks is 30 minutes before official sunrise until sunset.
I don't think I would ever eat duck. You know?
Oh, come on.
I've seen it served. I
I'm
don't
gonna
care
cook
for
it for you.
Oh,
We're gonna
but
do that again.
which duck has the best meat?
You know, people across
I
the way have
love
all
duck.
kind. You know, some people say ringnecks are bad, and they're actually very juicy duck, very good. Mallards, over the long haul, and historically back in the early 1900s, the canvasback was a premium. The canvasback was something that was served in New York City. It cost $12,
Yes,
$13 a
yes.
plate, and that's in the early teens.
Yes.
So imagine.
Oh, you've had
the
some.
cost of that.
I've had duck before. I've eaten duck.
But
Oh, the roast duck.
canvasback was the kind of the premium there. But mallards again are a staple. Everybody, wood ducks are good ducks to eat. Teal are some of my favorite. They're very juicy, very tender.
I'll have the
The teal are
roast.
smaller,
I'll have the roast duck with the mango salsa.
of course. Of course you will.
Yes.
Let's go back to
Let me
cost
guess.
for a minute.
Let me just guess.
Waterfowlers
Tastes like chicken.
No, it does not
it does
taste
not
like
taste
chicken.
like
It has
chicken.
its own taste.
It has its
does.
own-
Has its own taste, then I don't
does.
want it.
It's a dark meat.
I don't go beyond chicken.
It's a dark meat. Needs
You
to be
brought me
cooked,
alligator. I ate it because you said it tastes like chicken, and I ate it.
I love
It
gator.
was a chewy chicken, wasn't it?
It was a little
You know what,
chewy.
you know what
Yeah.
gator tastes like? Like
Tasted
clam
better
strips.
after
Kinda.
I threw it up.
You
And it
did
went back
not.
down.
You did not throw it. Phil, get out of here. You loved it. You know it. You said so. Moving on. Cost.
I love anything in hot grease.
We were talking about duck calls, and we're talking about cost of things and the amount of things that duck hunters invest in. Probably more than any other hunter anywhere. Waterfowl hunters invest more money in the sport than anybody. The things that the duck calls. These duck calls can range from 50, 65, 125. These calls I've got in front of you here, different prices: 45, 25, 15, through some of these little whistles and things, you get some real premium duck calls in here. I've got,
can you make your own? Are you capable of making your own?
I am not.
You cannot.
The acrylic duck call I've got here made by Mark Ackerman was $125 in the day. Those duck calls now are $150 and up.
Wow.
For a premium acrylic call. Good calls. They work real well.
You take care of your duck calls.
I do.
You keep them.
Each call has its preference in wet weather. Some are better when they're wet. Acrylic calls work really well when they're wet. Wood calls sometimes will soak up water and don't do as well. Just depends on the call. Cork inside, rubber, those kind of things. But back to cost, outside of duck calls, other things, again, we talked about $42.50, $73 just for your license. Good box of shells, $12 to $25 for a box of shells. That's 25 shells. A shotgun, $400 to $1,500. A nice jumbo with a motor, $8,500 to $20,000. Decoys, $50 to $200 a dozen. I was looking at some premium decoys this past weekend, $150 for a half dozen.
Decoys are
they are personalized to the duck hunter. Yeah. Duck hunters are passionate about what they do. They like a certain brand. They like a certain look. Some guys want to go back to the old days. They want to use cork decoys. They want to use some of these hard urethane, rubber, foam coat decoys that kind of look like the old decoys. And they're willing to pay lots of money for them.
Right.
And they keep them in little bags. They take them out and they'll put a few bags out. So, waders, $250. Drake hunting jacket. I say Drake hunting jacket. That's one of the top brands today. Everybody knows about $250. The sky's the limit on what you want to buy in camouflage clothing. But duck hunters invest a lot of money in that. Our state and DNR puts a lot of investment into waterfowl areas for people to hunt. We talked about Category 1, Category 2. Your Category 1 areas are areas that are draw only. We put in with a draw every year. You pay $20 to put in for the draw. And at the end, and probably in about 3 years, takes you 3 to 4 years to get drawn. That's how popular.
That's the only way you can go into those areas.
Category 1, yes, sir. Really? And those are specialized areas. They're historical areas that have lots of wintering waterfowl. We have limited availability for people to hunt, and you draw to get in.
And thousands of people try to get in.
Thousands of people get in. So now it's taking 3 to 4 years to get in. But these areas, again, had a question last week. You remember, a caller came in, wanted to know about breaks in the dikes. Is that stopping our waterfowl hunts? It does not stop our waterfowl hunts. We've only got one area right now that's not being hunted, Samworth. Other than that, all of our areas, just like last year, will be hunted again. I salute our staff that work on the coast, our technicians, biologists. They do a lot of hard work to keep these areas open, to make sure they're flooded correctly as best they can. Even despite all these breaks in the dikes, these areas are wintering a lot of waterfowl and will have successful hunts this year.
Real quick, then, what is Category 2? You talked about 1.
Category 2 are areas that are first come, first serve. They're areas that are open to you certain days of the week. A couple things to remember this week. Keep your license on you at all times. Make sure you got your plug and your shotgun. Use the approved non-toxic shells, no lead shot. Your shooting hours, again, half hour before official sunrise until sunset. Don't hunt over bait. Know where you're hunting. Look around you. Be smart. Don't set up too close to other hunters. Give them room. Don't sky bust. Don't shoot at birds that are too high for you. Be smart. Be nice to those that are around you. Give others a chance to shoot. If you let birds work, they'll come in closer. If you keep shooting 60 yards, they're never going to come in. So don't sky bust. Use ethics. Be careful. Let somebody know where you're going. Let them know when you plan to return.
Plan a hunt, hunt a plan.
That's right. Plan your hunt, hunt your plan. That's right.
This coming from, who was the hunter in the Bugs Bunny cartoon? This coming from this guy, Elmer
Fudd is what you're looking for?
That's who I'm looking for, Elmer.
Hey, and on the way out the door, one more.
Quick, hurry.